Good morning. Thanks to everybody for joining today. My name is Ed Rennick and I am one of the partner managers here at Redstor. I have bound and gagged my 4 children, so I do apologize in advance if they break free and interrupt the session. Today I'm going to be aiming to keep this to around 30 minutes with some time for questions. However, if we do run out of time, please email me directly. It is just shown on the screen there, or contact your partner manager or whoever you do normally correspond with at Redstor, and we'll get back to you very quickly. So today the aim is to cover current situation around the responsibilities and who owns them on the Office 365 platform, soon to be named Microsoft 365. Pain points that we of Redstor as an organization have seen from our endeavors, the implications of Office 365 adoption and what we call the threat funnel, why Redstor and how we address those pain points, and finally the so what. What does that mean to you, the trusted partners who are working with the end users on a daily basis? Hopefully you will take something away you didn't know before, but more importantly have a better understanding of how Redstor can help give you differentiation. And this is not about chasing ambulances, it's about adding value at a time when value isn't really never been as important as it is now. Well, as we know, Microsoft Office 365 prides itself on enabling dynamic, collaborative workplaces for its customers, industry-leading security measures and attention to privacy, compliance and accessibility support, the robust functionality of the productivity suite. Even so, research shows that the data loss and protection are still major concerns for businesses migrating to the cloud. Prior to the COVID outbreak, adoption rates were growing steadily and had reached an occupancy of around 190 million users. And over the past few weeks, that capacity has risen by over 700%. And based on Microsoft's own figures, that around 80% of users don't have a third-party data protection solution in place. That's a lot of data that is not being protected. Applications like OneDrive and SharePoint power much of the collaboration capabilities within 365. However, that collaboration can be put in jeopardy when user error, hacking, sync issues, or malicious insiders cause data loss. Both apps leverage a primary and secondary recycle bin with a 93-day retention period, but these can also be emptied at any time, which means the data is at that point irretrievable. Microsoft also recently released a OneDrive restore feature, which enables end users to roll back all of their files to a previous point in time within 30 days, but there are major limitations. And most importantly, it adds no new protection. So if the data has been deleted, it cannot be restored. For the data that does still exist in OneDrive, it is an all or none destructive restore, which means a user has to roll back all changes made in their OneDrive account to be to the selected time, even the intended changes, instead of being able to limit the changes to certain files and folders. And again, Exchange Online has its own retention policies. By default emails go into the deleted items folder, and once they're purged from this, or if a customer hard deletes Exchange items, they are sent to a secondary recoverable items folder, which has a 14-day default retention period, and it can be extended to 30 days. And this, while this may sound like the answer to all the backup and retention hopes and dreams, just consider this for a second. Retention policies and capabilities vary from service to service within 365, and new services like Teams often don't have similar safeguards. Policies are always evolving and tend to be very complicated. If you aren't constantly monitoring your organization's data and investing time to understand that landscape, it's easy for things like critical data to fall through the cracks. And finally, Office 365 backup and retention policies only protect you from data loss in very limited scenarios. You can't take the place of a third-party backup solution, which can be seen in the quote above straight from their EULA. So as you can see, Microsoft are actually saying in their small print, they're recommending that the users take a third-party tool to give themselves complete data protection and that includes alignment to things like GDPR and any other audits that these organizations have to go through to show competency around data protection. But as you can see, the diagram's quite obvious. Most organizations, and hopefully this isn't news to you guys, but most organizations going into 365 don't even understand where those lines of demarcation begin and end, and probably aren't in most cases aware of what Microsoft do protect and what they don't protect. So it brings up even more importance in terms of having the conversation with the end users around what they're doing with that cloud-based data that they've got with Microsoft. So some of the pain points that we see on a very regular basis, and hopefully these should all resonate with everyone on the call. The move to cloud is and always will be a painful undertaking for any organization. It increases complexity. As a perception, it can increase complexity. And hopefully we can show you how that's made a little bit easier. But that is extending your policies. It's increasing the footprint that you have. It's deciding where you want the data stored and all of the associated risks that come with that. As we all know, cloud adoption in the early days was always a slow burn because of the risks around security, performance and things like that. And a lot of that has been taken care of now, but they don't take care of your data protection needs. And as we've seen, most organizations want to go into the cloud in their own time in a very considered and planned way. But at the moment, current circumstances globally have dictated a different way of working for most organizations now, and have actually forced many companies into using the cloud, whether they like it or not. And obviously, the other challenge is maintaining the 3-2-1 rule of backup, which is 3 copies, 2 locations, and 1 being in a separate offsite place. In terms of regulation and compliance, maintaining compliance now since the GDPR combined rulings came out have put a lot more onus on organizations to make sure the data is protected. But that doesn't mean just backing up the data. And as we all know from Article 32 in the GDPR documentation, Article 32 is very much about rights and responsibilities around the data controller being the customer, but more importantly, being able to access personal data in a timely manner in the event of a physical or technical incident. And so right to be forgotten and scenarios like that in a traditional world are very, very difficult to provide. As an example, if all of the data is on tapes, those tapes have got to be pulled onto disk. The disk has got to be read, and the process continues till you've got all of the data, and away you go. And finally, controller versus processor. The controller being the data owner, and that is the IT manager, the IT director, and actually board members are also responsible for these. So if it's found that a company is not compliant to GDPR, and it goes to a legal scenario, the likelihood is that the fines will be placed on individuals, not as an organization. And finally, business downtime. As we know, we in the IT world have been helping end users plan for the top 8 reasons, which are all around security breaches, data breaches, hardware failures, user errors, unplanned incidents, and things like that. What we haven't been able to plan for, and no one really has, is for the scenario that we're actually experiencing now. So even with all of the best planning for all of the major reasons that downtime exists, we can all still get left fielded, as we've had with the COVID-19. And finally, what does that all lead to? Business downtime leads to reputational damage, and that is the the one aspect in terms of the outcomes of downtime that you can't really put a price on. You can't put a monetary value to that. And as we saw with organizations like TalkTalk, that damage is irreparable. And to have it twice in a matter of a month, is a cardinal sin anyway. In terms of the implications, what does that really mean? What have been the knock-on effects? Well, more data being placed in the Microsoft Cloud, no obligations from Microsoft to back it up, and how many documents are being shared, stored, and sent via cloud services or remotely held on laptops. And a lot by users who haven't even used 365 or fully aware of some of the policies that you should try and adhere to maintain integrity on your data. So how are you ensuring you've got capacity in your on-premise infrastructure, especially when so much data is actually unused, old, redundant, or out of date? And the risks associated with staff having to go on site, touch tapes that others have touched, and forcing people to travel and put themselves in positions they would prefer not to be in. And even though Microsoft already occupies the top spot in cloud usage rankings per user count, and analyzing usage of over 220,000 cloud services, it was found 58.4% of sensitive data in the cloud is stored in Microsoft Office documents. So if we use sensitive information such as business plans, medical records, financial forecasts, and so forth as a proxy for business critical data, it's clear that the dominant platform for working with this information still remains Microsoft Office. They do take security of the platform very seriously and have made significant investments in service level security. And this investment protects Microsoft cloud-based applications from intrusions. However, users can still perform high-risk actions with these applications, whether their high-risk behavior is accidental or malicious. And moreover, account credentials can be acquired via phishing scams and used by third parties to gain access to corporate data. Taken together, the average organization experiences threats each month within 365, which include 1.8 compromised accounts each month, such as unauthorized third-party login into a corporate Office 365 account using stolen credentials, nearly 1 insider threat each month, such as user downloading sensitive data from SharePoint Online and taking it when they join a competitor, and just under 1 privileged user threat each month, such as an administrator provisioning excessive permissions to a user relative to the role. So as we can see, the threat funnel's real, and this is on at every level in any organization. We can't account for users and their behaviors, whether they plan them or they don't plan them. And the only way to mitigate against a human error and things that humans are involved in is by bootstrapping it with a data protection tool. So why Redstor, guys? And I'd like to think most, if not all, of you guys on this call are very aware of why Redstor in relation to these 3 areas, but I'll cover them off regardless. In terms of the move to the cloud, the discovery tools that we have are second to none. So we can help an organization work out exactly what he's got in his on-premise environment if he needs it, what machines are up to capacity, how we can use retention policies to free space, but more importantly, in the 365 environment, we have a software tool where the end user, you guys can use this with them. They can put their admin credentials in, and it will give a very quick breakdown of how much data they have within SharePoint, within OneDrive, and within their mail environments. And so it allows you to be very, very quick in reacting to pricing requests. And obviously, we all know and love the ease of which our pricing model provides. We as we know, we have a good amount of partners and end users who use the Redstor platform as a data migration tool, not only within 365 environments. And obviously, in terms of resilience, if we are talking about a resilience from a cloud to cloud perspective, and this is, by the way, a true cloud to cloud offering. This doesn't predicate any data needing to be delivered on premise like some of our competitors have in place. We have 2 data centers that this resides in. So not only do they have a backup of their Office 365 environment, but they have a replicated copy of that in a second environment that we manage and maintain. And just I think something very worth noting is the way we bring new users into the platform. I come from the data protection market, and I've worked with and for many of our competitors. And this is one of the features that I think is very useful to you guys, and particularly to end users. So within the management interface, there is a simple tick box that the user can select, and that automatically draws through any new users that get added. So that lessens the burden on admin, and it means that as they add new users into 365, they are automatically pulled through into the backup collection and will remain there. So we have this automated way of bringing in brand new users. So for organizations taking on lots of temporary staff on a regular basis, this is a great tool to lower their level of admin in bringing those users in. In terms of the regulation and compliance piece, evidence and compliance is very easy within the portal. We have now put a deep search function in there that allows you to not only get in at a file level, and this is to give you an example. If we were looking for an expenses file for Ed Rennick, and my name was inside the document in the metadata rather than at the title of the file, we will still find that name in those files and bring them into one single search pane so that they can easily retrieve anything from their backup environment. In terms of the deep search functionality we have, that allows right to be forgotten functions and where an organization has an issue at a user level, maybe a complaint that's been raised, they can go in and search on an individual level on emails and find everything they need to find. And again, that falls right into the right to be forgotten. It allows, because of the deep search, it allows us to pull everything from all of the backups that are stored in the cloud and pull those all into one single place so that they can be used for evidence and if need be, deleted permanently. And finally, in terms of addressing the business downtime challenges, we have the ability to provide file level restores across all of the fields within 365. You guys will be aware of the instant data tool that we have. And to give you a very quick synopsis of how that works, in an ideal world, you'd want to be able to get at your data as quickly as possible. But in the world that we live in most backup technologies aren't intelligent enough to work out what data you need and when you need it at a user level. So when you want to get that data back, you have to basically pull 100% of the data back to access maybe the 5 or 10% that you need. If you think about the Netflix analogy, which we use a lot, if you were a Netflix user, you wouldn't necessarily expect to download the entire Netflix library to be able to use and enjoy and watch one single movie that they have within that. And that is exactly the premise that Redstor works on. So we, at a user level, can provide that kind of Netflix view where they can go in into the full volume and pull out at a file level. It could be a database, a Word document. It doesn't matter what that is. It's whatever is important to that user at the time, and we effectively give priority to that file. And that that provides the rapid recovery. And it also gives much easier access to the files to the users and to the admin team. And this is completely user driven, as I've just alluded to. And most backup technologies don't know what the users want to get to first. Redstor have got around that problem with the instant data tool and allowing the users to retrieve exactly the files or the emails or the metadata within Teams or SharePoint that they need in that event. And as we can see, just very quickly, we've got our traditional backup and recovery solution and traditional disaster recovery, that being full volumes brought back. But we have the instant data tool, which is even more relevant in the 365 environment, because it allows us, as I've just mentioned, to pull through file level access to anything that the users need. And this is all underpinned with the search and insight tools that we have to enable the users to be completely, the organizations to be completely compliant and be able to react on any scenario. So as an example, auditors come in and they want to check how robust disaster recovery and compliance is. The end user can literally say to the auditor, pick a file, any file, and they can pick a file at random and be able to pull that file back in a matter of seconds. That is very compelling at any point in time, but none more so than at this point in time with what's going on around the world. So we move on to the so what's. What does this mean to you guys? Well, I've been in sales for 20 years, and disaster recovery has always been my go-to Trojan horse for engineering and fostering conversations with end users. But I think right at this point in time, the step on from disaster recovery as a topic is the recovery around the 365 platform. And the Trojan horse is that you can, we know that 80% of the market don't have a third-party product in place. And that allows us to go and have a meaningful conversation with these guys without chasing ambulances. Well, guys, you've adopted 365. Now what next? What do we do to ensure that you have compliance and you have protection around your data and an ability to recover, more importantly, when you need to? We have a very easy to manage console for you guys. So this is about providing a value-added service to your customers. Easy to provision, easy to remove users, and easy to set up as well. And I encourage you guys to use our trial platform. We are at the moment providing a number of days free. And that is a great way of showing these guys the merits of how quickly we can bring the data in, how easy it is to manage, and also how easy it is to recover these files in the event of disasters. We pride ourselves on our simple pricing model. It's very different to the rest of the market. This is actually about the data selected to be protected. This isn't about how many users the organization have. They already have enough of that user-based licensing with Microsoft when they actually adopt the platform in the first place. So we're trying to make that adoption onto the platform and that data protection layer a little bit easier to manage in terms of cost and visibility of what you're using. Because we do not charge, in fact, let me put that a different way, what we include in that price per gig is 4 months worth of retention on those files and folders as well. So they actually have 4 months of retention built in, and we all know typically most companies work on a 30-day. If we need to extend that, by the way, we can extend that to whatever point in time the end user needs. But that allows us to look at predictable billing for these guys and not overcharge them when they don't need to be overcharged. Many organizations have a very high user count, but a low data footprint. And our view of the world is the only true way of of evaluating a customer's data protection environment is actually by the data they protect, not about how many users they have, not about how they've architected the VMware environment to VMs and hosts, or how many sockets they need, or any of those weird and wonderful ways of pricing this up. The addressable market, guys, as we know, it's huge. It's absolutely enormous at the moment. Microsoft, by nature of their own statements, have said that 80% of the global users don't have in place third-party data protection tools. That's the addressable market, guys. There's a huge amount of end users there, whether they're current customers or prospects, who aren't aware that and haven't got to that small print telling them what they need to do to protect the data. And this is a great seed planter as well. If you guys are going in particularly into end users that you're trying to get traction with, or prospect organizations that you're trying to generate more share in a particular area of their infrastructure, this is a great way of planting a seed that is incredibly meaningful to them. It's all about the recovery of the data, and that is possibly the most important part of data protection. Backup is boring. We all know this, and I'm pretty sure everybody's rubbed their eyes more than once talking about backup. Disaster recovery and recovery of files is meaningful, and it's a much more exciting conversation to have, and it allows us to have conversations with people higher up the food chain in terms of the hierarchy, the business owners of the organizations. And that allows us to go back in later. Now we've already got confidence with the end user that we're providing a high value service to them. It allows you guys to go back in and deal with the rest of the data if you're not already doing that, the data they have outside of the 365 environment. The value of this is very high in terms from a strategic perspective. Recovery, disaster recovery, and the topic of, as I've mentioned, it gives us much more than an ability to talk to C-level delegates within an organization. The CFOs care about profitability, they care about losing money and avoiding costs, and all of those play into the solutions that Redstor and by proxy you would be providing to those guys. And obviously commercially, it's a much higher value conversation when you're talking about availability and recovery of services and protecting that reputation that these guys have. We see the benefits, we know the benefits of monthly recurring revenue. This, in the climate we're in now, there's a lot of organizations who are driven by CapEx and are going to be feeling the pain of having these kind of spikes over the year, these quarterly spikes at normal points of procurement. Cloud technology allows us to move into a monthly recurring model where we spread the risk a little more, and we've got that monthly income locked down usually for 3-year periods. And then the final piece is the added value. The insight tool that you guys have access to allows you to have service-based, service-led conversations with your organizations about what they're doing with their data, how much of that data is being accessed, what amount of it is sensitive, and on the other flip side of that, looking at more value, looking at their on-premise environments and how we can help them save space and capacity on local storage, how we can help them remove duplicated files, looking at their retention policies closely about what files are being accessed, and so on. So hopefully, guys, you guys have seen, we've covered a lot. I've covered a lot in the 30 minutes, and I've literally took up the whole 30 minutes. That wasn't purposeful. I wasn't trying to avoid questions. But if you do have questions, please do fire them in over email, and I'll get back to you directly or via a colleague. What I'd like you guys to do as a call to action, if you like, if you could identify 5 existing customers or prospects that you guys are on your radar now that are using 365 or looking to use 365 and haven't considered protection, or maybe have protection and it's not doing the right job for them. Bring those to us and we will provide you with some special pricing and or some extended periods on the platform at no cost, and to help you to get these guys on and see the benefits of the Redstor proposition. With that, we come to a close. Celeste, do we have time for questions, or are we done?
We have reached the full 30 minutes, Ed. We've got about 2 questions that I'll just ping over to you, unless you want to try and answer them now.
Yeah, if you want to ping them over, and I'll email them directly rather than take up any further time. Hopefully you guys have if you remember at the front of the call, my objectives were that you maybe picked up something you didn't know about the Microsoft Office platform and some new things to talk to your customers about, and also are able to see where Redstor can help you guys add value into that conversation with the end users. And with that, I thank you very much for your time.